Close your eyes for a moment and imagine. You are resting in the quiet darkness of a wooden ship, gently rocking on the endless sea. Around you, the soft sighs of 775 souls drift through the air. Ahead lies a journey of 15,000 miles across vast, whispering oceans to a land no one from your world has ever truly known. This is not a tale of harshness alone. It is the beginning of something beautiful, a story that turns struggle into wonder. In 1787, Britain's prisons were full, and the old path to America had closed forever. So 11 ships set sail, carrying 775 convicts toward the far side of the world. Today, that distant shore holds one of the loveliest cities on Earth, Sydney. In this video, we will walk through its story together, gently and clearly, using AI to bring old maps, paintings, and records back to warm living light. Come with me. Let us begin on that quiet morning of January 26, 1788. The day a new chapter opened so softly in history. The early years, a gentle beginning, 1788-1800. As the ship slipped into the great calm waters of Port Jackson, a deep silence wrapped around them, broken only by the soft lap of waves against the hull. Commander Arthur Phillip gazed upon the vast harbour, the wooded shores, and the clear sky, and spoke with quiet wonder. This is the finest natural harbour in the world. The very first map of this new place was drawn with care by a convict named Francis Fowles. His only crime had been taking a coat and a pair of boots. In simple, tender lines, he showed the 11 ships resting at anchor, a few winding dirt paths, modest tents for the men and women, a small blacksmith's forge, and humble storehouses. That was all of Sydney in those first gentle days. While the wider world rushed forward with great change, here everything felt small and hopeful. Just 6 years later, another convict artist, Thomas Watling, painted the same cove with loving eyes. The tents had quietly given way to warm brick buildings along the waterfront. Ships now rested peacefully in the harbour, and a little town was beginning to breathe. Thomas wrote home with a soft sigh, saying the settlement was not yet even a third the size of his dear Scottish hometown. Yet even he could sense the quiet growth beneath the surface. The first government house stood with quiet dignity. Simple brick walls, a friendly timber fence, and 2 small sentry boxes watching over the gate. From this modest home, Arthur Phillip gently guided more than 1,000 souls, most of them convicts who had come for small mistakes, stealing bread, a coat, or a loaf. They were watched by around 200 soldiers whose lives were not so very different from their own. In 1797, a sweet problem arose. The fields were yielding golden grain, but there was no easy way to turn it into flour. So, on the highest sunlit hill above the settlement, they built Sydney's first windmill. A convict named John Davis shaped it with his own hands from parts sent across the sea. It turned gently in the breeze and could grind a bushel of wheat in just 10 peaceful minutes. That lovely hill still carries the name Windmill Hill. If you walk there today, you will find the graceful Sydney Observatory keeping watch in its place. Down near the water, in the area we still call the Rocks, convicts made small, simple homes of stone and timber. They kept cheerful chickens and gentle pigs, and grew vegetables in tiny fenced gardens. When the day's required work ended in the afternoon, they were free to live softly, baking fresh bread, crafting tools, or opening little pubs where friends could gather. It was never a cold prison. It felt more like a humble, hard-working village, quietly clinging to the warm sandstone. 11 years after those first ships arrived with little more than hope and courage, farms had taken root. New roads were being softly carved through the bush, and a second town was growing at Parramatta. The population had gently risen past 5,000. Sydney Cove remained the welcoming port where ships brought news and goods from far away. But the heart of the colony was slowly sweetly shifting westward. What had begun as punishment was slowly becoming home. The years of quiet growth, 1800, 1850. 15 years after landing, the scene had become wonderfully peaceful and full of promise. Sandstone houses climbed the hillsides with graceful ease. Neat gardens bloomed behind friendly fences. A calm wharf welcomed ships from 3 continents into the harbor that once knew only silence and bush. The population had reached around 7,000. Trading ships arrived with gentle regularity. The colony was no longer waiting anxiously for help from England. It was learning to trade with its own quiet confidence. Free settlers, kind merchants, and curious sailors now came alongside the convicts, and many chose to stay forever. That first modest government house had grown with care. A long, welcoming drawing room was added, and a graceful veranda stretched along the front like a warm embrace. Though every governor smiled and gently complained it was a little damp and rather small, this humble building held the whole colony together for 56 peaceful years. Australia's first newspaper was born here, and the first laws were written with thoughtful hands. Then came a surprising yet fascinating moment. On January 26, 1808, exactly 20 years after the first fleet arrived, 400 soldiers marched down Bridge Street with flags waving softly. They placed Governor Bligh under arrest in his own bedroom. His brave daughter tried to stop them with nothing but her parasol. The gentle disagreement was over the trade in rum. History remembers it with a smile as the Rum Rebellion, Australia's one and only military coup. The people needed a hospital, but Britain kindly declined to pay. So Governor Macquarie made a warm agreement. 3 merchants would build it in exchange for the right to bring in 45,000 gallons of rum.
Rum Hospital.
That is why it earned the sweet name, the Rum Hospital. Today, its north wing still stands gracefully as the New South Wales Parliament House. In 1819, the Hyde Park Barracks opened with quiet order. 600 men rested safely in hammocks stacked 3 high. It was designed by convict Francis Greenway, who built it so well that the governor granted him freedom. The building still stands today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. When Sydney set its heart on beauty, it created St. James Church in 1824. Warm sandstone in elegant Georgian style, it stood with quiet pride beside Hyde Park. Gas lamps glowed softly along the streets, and carriages rolled past with a gentle rhythm. Sydney now felt like a true city, graceful and welcoming. St. James's still opens its doors every Sunday, offering peace to all. By the 1830s, the arrival of new convicts had come to a soft end. The population approached 35,000. The old penal days were quietly fading. In their place rose something new and full of promise. 2 graceful forts now protected the harbor. Dawes Point Battery stood where the story began, and Fort Macquarie rose elegantly on the opposite shore. The place where Fort Macquarie once stood would later make way for something the whole world would come to love. Every soul in this story arrived across the gentle sea. When ships drew near, the old government house on the hill flew the Union Jack with quiet pride. That dear old building was lovingly taken down in 1846. In its place rose a beautiful Gothic Revival home with towers and battlements, like a small English castle resting peacefully in the Australian bush. The Supreme Court opened in 1827 with calm authority beside St. James's Church. In front lay Hyde Park, the oldest public park in Australia, now a green and peaceful space for everyone. George Street, once a simple dirt path, had become a lovely road lined with shops, hotels, and warm offices. By 1842, horse-drawn carts moved along it with a pleasant clatter. That year, Sydney was officially named a city, a name it had already earned in its heart. From the gentle rise of Flagstaff Hill, one could see the busy yet peaceful waterfront, the shining harbor, and the far blue mountains resting like a soft blue dream on the horizon. At Miller's Point, life moved with friendly energy. The harbor remained the warm, beating heart of the colony. Wool sailed away while new friends and families sailed in. Ships arrived from London, Kolkata, Canton, and Cape Town, gently bringing the world closer. Two charming pubs stood in the same welcoming neighborhood, the Whaler's Arms and the Hero of Waterloo, built in 1843 from warm convict sandstone. It still opens its doors today, carrying gentle stories of sailors and laughter. And let us remember the Tank Stream, the quiet little creek that gave Sydney its very first breath. Arthur Phillip chose this gentle spot in 1788 simply because fresh water flowed here. It remains the sweet reason this city first took root. The golden years and beyond 1850, 1901. When gold was discovered at Bathurst in 1851, a new and exciting warmth spread across the land. Within 4 years, Sydney's population had doubled with joyful energy. Ships arrived every day, bringing hopeful people from Britain, America, and China. George Street transformed almost overnight into the bright main street of a thriving town. 100 years after those 11 ships first arrived, what had once been a simple camp of tents had become a city of 400,000 souls. Steamships and tall sailing ships filled the harbor with peaceful majesty. Factories hummed, railways reached out, and cathedrals rose toward the sky with quiet grace. Sydney had always been a place of building and dreaming. The gold rush brought fresh hope and beautiful ambition. To share its growing wonder with the world, the city created the magnificent Garden Palace, inspired by London's Crystal Palace. It was finished in just 8 gentle months, a soaring dome 65 meters high. More than 1 million visitors came in 7 months, a remarkable gift of joy. But on the morning of September 22nd, 1882, at 20 minutes to 6, a fire took it all away in 40 short minutes. Everything turned to soft ash. Yet the story continued. On the first day of January 1901, Sydney Town Hall glowed with warm, joyful lights to celebrate the birth of a nation. 6 colonies came together as one, the Commonwealth of Australia. It remained linked to the Crown, yet now held its own parliament, its own leader, and its own proud flag. 113 years after 11 ships had quietly anchored in an unknown harbor, an entire continent had become a country, not through anger or war, but through calm agreement and shining celebration. That gentle spirit is still part of Australia today. And so we come to the end of this peaceful journey through Sydney's story. From those first convict ships to a city filled with light and dreams. Which city or moment in time would you like to explore together next? Please share your thoughts gently in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, I would be so grateful if you liked, shared, and subscribed so we can keep traveling through history together. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until we meet again, take care.